Okay, we're in the Mishnah. We're in the Mishnah still in Daf Bezim and Aleph in Gitten. The Mishnah says a person who brings a get from overseas. So the shliach, the agent who's appointed by the husband, who's referred to as a shliach lo locho, who's the equivalent of the husband, he has to say b'fonei nechtam. The get was written before him and it was signed before him. So Medina Sayam means a location which is distant from Eretz Yisrael. Rebbe Leo says no, even Mina Rekem v'Cheger. If you bring it from Rekem or Cheger, which are close to Roman's border towns, to Eretz Yisrael, although it's within its proximity, you still have to say Fonei Nechtam. Rebbe Lezer Omer Afilu B'Krar Ludim L'Velud. Yeah, Lud is in Eretz Yisrael, and you bring it from the Kfar Ludim, the town of Ludim, to Lud. Although you see it as one town, or people actually intermingle with one another, so basically the proficiency would be the same. Nevertheless, if you bring it from the other side of the border into Lud, the get has the one who delivers the get, the shliach, has to say Fonei Nechtam. That's what we left off yesterday. The Tana Kama says, if you bring a get from overseas, you have to say Fonei Nechtam. What does that indicate? Because the Gemara didn't discuss, because in Medina Sayam they're not proficient in the laws of Lishma, that the get has to be written Lishma, specifically for this couple, the intent. So therefore, because there's that concern, so the agent, when he delivers the get, he's attesting to that fact. Or there's an issue of what? Eidim Mitzvim L'Kaimo. What happens if the husband should question the validity of the get? He claims it's a forgery. So normally you'd have to substantiate it. What happens if you can't locate the witnesses? You have a problem. So there's a question whether the woman was permitted to remarry. She's bound. She's stuck. Because she has a cheskes eishes. She's not permitted until it's proven that the marriage has been terminated. So by the witness saying b'fonei nechtam, it was signed before me, he's the equivalent of two witnesses substantiating the document, that this is a viable document, therefore she's permitted to remarry. Because if he would not, you have to wait for the Gemara. Okay? Because if he would not substantiate it, if later the husband should come and contest it, its validity, we have a problem. Okay? So if the issue is Lishma, which the Gemara is going to discuss all this, that's why I just wait for the questions. So if it's Lishma, and it's not a question of substantiating the document, so therefore it's only when the get comes from overseas. But what about if it's brought from Eretz Yisrael to overseas, and the only concern is not substantiating the document, it's only making sure the document was written with the proper intent? So since Eretz Yisrael, they're proficient in the laws of Lishma, there's no reason for the agent to say anything, right? But if the issue is substantiating the document, that's the concern, then we have a problem. Why should we differentiate between whether it's brought from overseas to Eretz Yisrael or going from Eretz overseas? Wherever you're arriving, the witness who's assigned, any of the people will not recognize those signatures. The 8 witnesses are not here, and others who recognize the signatures, who can recognize them, because it's another location far away. You're not going to be able to substantiate it. So and the Gemara at one point wants to make, maybe that's the argument between the Tanakam and the Chachamim. Tanakam is of the opinion the concern is only Lishma. So if it's only Lishma, it's only if the get is brought from overseas. So the agent has to attest to the fact it was written Lishma. But if it's to substantiate the document, does it really make a difference if it's going from overseas to Eretz Yisrael? Or it's going from Eretz Yisrael to overseas? You still need somebody has to testify to the authenticity of the document. That's going to be discussed in the Gemara. David, what do you have to say? Okay. No. No, they're saying a chidush. Well, it would depend what the reason is. Seemingly, they would agree. No. They're concurring with the Tanakh Because you're going from outside of Eretz Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. The Chachamim are introducing something all of a sudden. Even if you're going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, the Medina Sayyam, one also has to say it.
This is rabbinic, correct? This requirement on the messenger, the agent.
That he has to attest to the fact.
Yes.
I mean,
it's a rabbinic, it's a stringency.
the get's not on a rabbinic level. I mean, the Gemara's going to come out. We're going to see the Gemara initially of the understanding. It's a true concern. It's a Torah concern, and therefore the Gemara's going to ask a question. So how do you believe a single witness?
That was my question.
The Gemara's going to ask these questions.
Because a single witness, only under very narrow circumstances.
I mean, here you're allowing a married woman if there's a true concern to get may not be valid. So what is the value of his testimony? It's Davar Sheberva. If it's only a concern and we don't want people to talk, okay, so you rely on his testimony, a single witness. But if there's a true concern, you should have to have two witnesses. You have to have two witnesses. Eidim.
Two messengers.
Two messengers.
Or two
Right.
agents bring the get.
Bring the get, exactly. Not only that, what about a woman brings the get? Even a woman could be an agent to deliver a get. Doesn't have to be a man delivering the get. And her testimony is accepted to establish it as a valid get. Right?
It sounds.
Well, we'll see. No, it is. It's rabbinic. It's rabbinic. Because the Gemara is going to say factually, even in Chutz La'aretz, the majority of sofrim, of scribes, they are proficient. There's a minority. So since people could say maybe it was written by one of those scribes who may have not been proficient, and the husband could say something, it creates a problem. So to remove that issue, if you have the testimony of whoever it may be, as long as the person qualifies to be an agent, that's sufficient. That removes any issue. Even if the husband should say something, we dismiss it. People will dismiss it. Nobody will question the validity, because it's a question of mamzerim. The children are actually going to be illegitimate if she should remarry. If the husband actually contests the validity of the get. Okay, we'll see.
Anybody contested it.
No, nobody else is going to get involved in the picture. The husband, because when there's a man usually divorces his wife. I mean, things weren't that, the relationship wasn't such a good relationship. So he wants to, maybe in a certain way, after he gives it, he'll spread a word, a rumor. By the way, something that's not so simple, it's a kosher get. Maybe the sofer who wrote it, wasn't really fully in touch with all the laws pertaining to Gitten.
And the reason the husband would do such a thing is what? The ex-husband?
Out of malice.
Out of malice.
Correct. There's no love lost between usually the husband and wife after they divorce. It's not like today, amicable relationship. They socialize afterwards and everything under the sun.
Because, in this time, the man had all the cards.
Doesn't make a difference. But she did something, he divorced because she did something inappropriate. Or he couldn't tolerate the relationship. Or whatever, what a woman doesn't behave, he has the cards, but he has responsibilities too, financial responsibilities. So what does he do? He cuts her loose. The aggravation he gave her, she gave him, it's payback time now, as they say.
The reason I'm sort of questioning this is because if a man wants to free himself of this woman, so he issues a get, and that's it, it's over.
It's over.
It's
Correct.
over. Now, if he wants to go and spread a rumor that maybe the get isn't kosher, what he's doing is connecting himself back to it.
No. In regard to what? In regard to monetary, it's much of a lower raya. Right? The burden of proof's on her if she wants any financial payout. Right? Or financial support. Okay, but you understand? Once they say that, and even they rule, but still, it's actually tarnishing her image as a free woman. We'll see. We'll get to the Gemara.
Cutting off his nose to spite his face.
He's not cutting off his nose at all. He's a bad guy.
No,
He has nothing. What's he losing?
If he's saying maybe the divorce contract was not.
He's even questioning. He says he claims it's a forgery.
It's a forgery. So that means I'm still married to this woman.
Correct.
why do I need? Why do I want to be married to this woman?
People cut their nose off to spite their face.
Saying.
You know, some people can say she's an adulteress. That's what people are going to say.
So a man today who doesn't give a woman a get,
That's separate. Of course they're married.
Still married.
Why aren't they married?
I don't know.
We learned the first mission in Kedushin.
Yeah. So
A woman's free to marry only one or two situations.
So
You know what? Wait a second. I want to get this across because I know stories you remember. I'm not sure about the Gemara. It says a woman can be free to marry one or two ways, either through divorce or through death. That's the only two ways. Understand? So if a get's given, she can remarry. If he dies, she can marry. There was a story with the Noda B'Yehuda. You know, the Yehuda was the chief rabbi of Prague in the 1700s. His name was Rabbi Cheskel Landau. So the husband should have given the get in terms of, because of the circumstances. Wasn't willing to. So in those days, a person wouldn't give a get. The Bezdin, they'd force him physically. They'd apply physical force. They'd speak nicely, but if not, as long as it's rotzani, he says, I agree, it's considered not under duress. Even though what brought about that rotzani, because if the Bezdin rules, as the Rambam says in Wednesday Gitten, that the will of every Jew is to do what the Torah wants. It's only the Yetzer Hara gets you off track. So this puts you back on track.
And the
okay?
Noda was okay with it. It's not good.
No, so you're speaking to him. You know, you should do it. He's not agreeable. You know, Noda B'Yehuda wasn't an ordinary person. Besides his greatness in Torah, he was a holy man. So he says to him, and to be able to go to the Noda B'Yehuda's home, you had a very long flight of steps. So he says to the man, he says, you know, the Mishnah says in Kedushin, a woman's permitted to marry one or two ways, either through divorce or death. You have the choice. Man says, I will not divorce her, and he slams the door. Walks out, trips off top steps, goes down, breaks his neck. Okay? That's the story.
Skila.
Woman is skila.
But
Correct?
Did he sign off in general on that method of beating a get out of somebody?
It's a Gemara. It's a Gemara. We're going to have Gemara later in Gitten. It's called get ma'usa. A get which is given under coercion. If the court is maaseh, the court gives the order, it's valid. If somebody else does it, takes it in his own hands, it's not valid. There's a story many years ago. We don't have any Englishmen here today. But the story, somebody told me the story many years ago. He asked me the question, what I thought. There was a case, observant couple, religious family, and the husband didn't want to divorce his wife, and he should have divorced. He should have divorced her. And the family understood there's no way he's divorcing unless they apply pressure. So they hired someone, and he showed up at the door with a gun. He says, I understand you're having some marital difficulties, and the woman really wants to get out of this marriage. And he just showed the gun, nothing more than the gun. He didn't threaten him that he would kill him. You understand? The rabbi, they called him up afterwards, and they said, are you divorcing your wife? I will divorce her.
Oh, yeah.
Because he understood. But it's not simple, that's valid. Because if the court, the Bezdin doesn't give an order to bring about that degree of coercion, it's not simple. The reason why he's divorcing her is because he was threatened by this whoever it may be, by this gangster, or by this person. Not simple. Not simple, it's valid.
But was that in the case of
it has to be the Bezdin. The Bezdin has to give. It has to be a halachic ruling of the court. And the person who goes, it's the agent of the court carrying out the directive of the court. We'll see. It's a Gemara at the end. It's later in the Gitten.
The Gemaras can go through why or how the basin has the right to do that.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. In Israel, they do it today. They take a person, they put him into jail with the worst kinds of criminals, and to be associated with these kinds of people.
The state.
The state doesn't. This is the chief rabbinate.
No, but I mean
the government. This is part.
Supreme Court. I mean,
Today, I don't know what the Supreme Court in Israel, but until recently, if the Rabbanut gave an order, the police would go arrest him, put him in jail in shackles, to sit with murderers and drug dealers and everything else, spending just a few days with these kinds of people. The man is ready to what? Is ready to give a get. Right? Because the man can't tolerate it, can't deal with it. Okay? Reb Shmuel Omer afilu mehegmunia l'hegmunia. One has to say fonech fonenechtam, even from hegmunia l'hegmunia, meaning there is no communication from one part of the town or the country to another part of the country. Wherever it may be, in Eretz Yisrael, Yehuda and Golil. Yehuda was one government, Golil was another government. Right? When it divided, yeah, two. There wasn't much communication between the two of them. You still have to say, because so now the question is, the Gemara discusses, if the reason is a question of lishma, so as long as it's Eretz Yisrael, it shouldn't be a problem. Right. But if it's a question of being able to locate Edom, it is a problem. So this would seemingly indicate, Rav Shmuel is of the opinion, the issue was what? Substantiating the document. So therefore you need the shliach, the agent, he should be the one who should certify the document as not being a forgery. Now, I had mentioned what I started talking about yesterday, where we left off. The Mishnah tells us in Chesed Habatim that if a person occupies a piece of property for 3 years, and nobody contests his right to be there, nobody lodges any complaint in court that it's being occupied by a man who shouldn't be there, so 3 years of silence of the original owner is the equivalent of possessing a document. Because otherwise he would have lodged a complaint. But, so what does a person do if somebody occupies his property, goes before 3 people, and he makes a public declaration that so-and-so is occupying this property illegally? Word spreads, because the Gemara says, Chaver Chaver Yislei, your friend has a friend, and his friend has a friend. Ultimately, it's going to get to the ears of the one who occupies the property, and when he hears that his rights to be there or not are being questioned, are being contested, he's going to make sure to hold on to that document, to the proof that he has a right to be there. Okay? What happens? The man proves that he launched a complaint. He lodged a complaint before the 3 years, and he comes after 3. He says, "What are you doing with my property?" He says, "Well, I bought it from you." If he can't present the deed, he's out. Because there's an Anand Sadi, we could say with certainty that if he would have heard it, he would have watched that document. So unless he brings proof, witnesses, now he has to bring witnesses that he purchased it. If he does not witness he purchased it, he's out. He has to, the original person takes the property, okay? So the Gemara speaks about a case of Yehuda and Golil, where it's like a Cold War. There's no communication. There's no communication. And a person lodges the complaint in one location, and the property is in the other location. Person has property in East Berlin, and he's in West Berlin, right? He lodges a complaint. He comes after 3 years, and he says to the man, "What are you doing with my property?" He says, "I didn't hear anything." And there's no way to hear it because it doesn't come across that border, right? Is there a claim against the person? So the other man can say, "I have a reason why I didn't keep my document. I was complacent. I felt nobody was contesting my rights. I didn't hold on to it." Does the original owner, does he have a right to retake the property? Right? And the owner, the original owner, he could prove he did lodge the complaint. He could. The halacha is he takes him out of the property. Why? Because, Howard, explain it.
Because he has proof, the other one doesn't.
No, but he claims he didn't hear it. He claims, "I didn't hear it," which is true. He didn't hear the complaint. He didn't hear the complaint. 3 years has passed. The original owner says, "I lodged my complaint." It just didn't get across the border. So again, but he acted. The original owner, we say, a person cannot remain quiet and tolerate seeing someone else occupying his property. That's just a reality. Factually, he expressed his displeasure that somebody's in his property. So now we have a question. Did you have a document? Did you not have a document? We have a question. We don't know. It's a regular question. But he has a cheskes marikama. The original person has a chazokah that originally owned it. The one who occupied, we don't know if he ever had a document. No, he has proof he owned it originally. Every case, whoever lodges a complaint, he has proof that he. Of course, he has. That's understood. He has that proof. Otherwise, the man could say, "Well, I don't even know who you are."
The issue whether he can hear it or not.
No. If he could hear it, let's say he didn't lodge the complaint, right? He did not lodge, even though you have proof you original owner. How did you remain silent all these years?
Right.
So therefore, the one who occupies it has a right to say, "I had it and I lost it. Right. I misplaced the document." Right. But if he could prove that he did lodge the complaint, then you should have the document. But in our situation, the man who occupies property, he says, there was no way I could have watched it because I was unaware that the complaint was launched. Doesn't make a difference. Zav Sofi. Did you have a document or not? We're not blaming you, but factually, you have to prove that you originally had the document. And since I have a cheskes morikama, that the person who claims it's his, he claims he never sold it or never gifted it, so it comes back to him, based on the principle of cheskes morikama, because the presumption is you were the original owner until we know differently, you're still considered the owner.
Correct, but the logic of the complaint preserves his right, whether the guy heard it or didn't hear it.
Correct, exactly.
That's the only purpose. So you get away from the idea that it's active notice. He doesn't have to hear it.
Correct.
It's the preserving of the right.
Right, but the application of that's only in that situation because there's no communication, it's not going to get across the border. So the same thing, there's magmunia, lagmunia. If you have two municipalities and they don't cross over that border, because there's a strained relationship between the two of them. So you treat it like it's coming from overseas. There's no way you're going to be able to substantiate the document. Therefore, the shliach has to be the one to substantiate, to certify the document that it's not a forgery.
I find this difficult, Rabbi, because if a man lives in a different country and he has heard that someone is occupying his property, and therefore he lodges the complaint in the other country, and the occupier doesn't hear this because of this distance or this separation, I would say, take the East Berlin and West Berlin. If a man knew that somebody was occupying, he'd write letters, he'd do something. He would try to penetrate that border. He wouldn't just say, I lodged it in the post office in West Berlin and that's it. So the man who's occupying has a good case.
We're saying the principle is a person doesn't remain silent. I didn't. When time will come, I will make my claim.
Now, I mean, the person knows that somebody's in his property.
He's
not resting easily.
He's not, but he's done all he can.
But the guy never heard.
Well, in those days, maybe today, if they would have legislated these laws, they would say, if there's some other way to be in touch, you should have been, you weren't, that would be the equivalent of not lodging a complaint. But at one time, the only way you could have lodged a complaint was to make it public knowledge, and ultimately, word would travel. So he did all he could do. He couldn't do more than that. You're right. Maybe today things would be different if they would have legislated it today, because the other means of communication. But one time it was only caravan. People would travel, right? They would carry the word. But if there's no other way to carry the word, because the caravans don't continuously go across the border, so there's no way.
Right, but even if you would have filed a complaint 20 times, and the fact is the guy never heard about it.
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't matter. Because it's factually it's a suffix.
Right.
So what do you do when you have a suffix? You go after chazaka. You have cheskes morikama. No, it's a combination of both. We have to have that let's say he didn't lodge the complaint. Right? No, and let's say he didn't have to. There's no presumption. No. If you don't have the contract, even after 20 years, he has a right to reclaim the property. You have to hold on to that document to prove that you were either the purchaser or it was gifted to you. If you can't bring that proof, you're out. No, it's a combination of two. No, we say a person who knows someone else is occupying the property, he cannot tolerate somebody acting as an owner in a location which is not his. It's his own property. So he should have reacted. The non-reaction proves that it's no longer yours. So let's say the case where East Berlin, West Berlin. Let's say he cannot prove that he lodged a complaint. It's gone.
And it belongs to
The occupier, the one who occupied. Even if you can't find it. Why didn't you? But here he's proving I did lodge my complaint. So therefore, I express myself as an owner would express himself. That you didn't hear it, that's the question. That's not my problem. You have to prove that you bought it.
Why was it he lodged the complaint knowing that there's no way the guys can hear it?
How's that possible? We say, there's a principle, Chabra Islay.
No, he knows that there is strained relations between the two sides.
No, that's what we're talking about over here. It doesn't make a difference. I've done all I could do. I can't do more than that. I don't have to go through hoops and hurdles to bring this about. I've done what I have to do. I've expressed my displeasure, my pain that somebody's taking something which he has no right to take from me. Whatever. That's all. My property now is preserved because I've expressed myself as I was supposed to express it.
But you have the same problem today. The Talmud states in
So it's an interesting. So the Tosas asks in Ksubis of Basra, just as the listener, the one who occupies is unaware of the complaint, the one who owns it, how is he aware it's being occupied? Right? So he says something interesting. He says, if somebody owns something, regardless whether there is communication or not, he's going to always somehow find out that somebody's occupying it. Because the person's always looking out for his asset. But the person who occupies it, if he believes he bought it legit, he has no reason to look over his shoulder. Right? He doesn't suspect the original owner is a thief, that he's trying to reclaim something which is not rightfully his. So therefore, since there is not normal communications, things do get across the border. But since it doesn't get across easily, he's not going to pick up on that. But the original owner, since it's his asset, he will do whatever he can to make sure nobody's occupying it. Because he has to prove that he did make the declaration of displeasure that somebody's occupying his property. So the question, how did he find out? He'll find out because the person always is looking after his asset. That's Tosas.
Even if you find out that the guy's there, because even if there's strained relations, but there's no way you can get a message to that guy that I'm not happy that you're occupying.
He doesn't have to get the message to the guy. He doesn't have to. He has to lodge it in a way. It's the occupier's problem. He has to prove that he purchased it. I already expressed my displeasure, right? By lodging the complaint. You didn't hear it, that's your problem. So now we have a question. Am I telling the truth or you telling the truth? It's irresolvable. What do you do when you have an irresolvable question? You go after Chazaka. You go after Cheskes Marikama. Okay.
And Chazaka is the original owner.
The original owner, right. Correct. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mirekim. Now what's considered chutz outside of Eretz Yisrael? Mirekim leMizrach. From a community called Rekem to the east, the Rekem Kimizrach. Rekem to the east is considered Medinas Hayam, and the city of Rekem is the equivalent also of Medinas Hayam. Me Ashkelon leDorom, Ashkelon to the south, Ashkelon keDorom. And Ashkelon is also considered Chutz Loretz. Me Aku leTzofon, and Tosas deals with all this. He asks questions. Because there are indications elsewhere that Aku is part of Eretz Yisrael. And here it says Aku to the north, Va'aku Kitzofun. And Aku is the equivalent of the north, of Chutz Loretz. So Tosas answers that Aku is split. Half Aku was Chutz Loretz, half Aku was in Eretz Yisrael. Because the Gemara says at the end of Ksubis, when the Amorim would come, they came from Chutz Loretz, they would kiss the stones of Aku because of Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, to show their love. Do you see Aku is Eretz Yisrael? So the Gemara says no. So Tosas answers, when you enter into Akko, that part of Akko is Chutz Loretz. Only when you reach a certain point in Akko, that's where they bowed and they kissed the ground, kissed the stones, because of that. Ramero Akko Keretz Yisrael. Ramero argues. He says regarding Gitten, Akko Keretz Yisrael Gitten, meaning one does not have to say Foni Nechtam. Hamevi get Eretz Yisrael, one who brings a get from one community to the other in Eretz Yisrael where there is communication. The agent doesn't have to attest to anything regarding its validity. And if someone should contest it, its validity, you'll establish it, you'll substantiate it with the witnesses, the signatures, and because you'll be able to locate them. So again, Rashi says twice over here. Rashi says, what's its kind of either the witness themselves, or you're going to locate witnesses who recognize the signatures. No. Shimgal, no, Hagmoni, it's a Cold War. Cold War. Here we're talking about regular cities. There is communication. Caravans go from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, right? Tveria to Yerushalayim. It's not a problem. Yeah, Hagmoni means where it's like an East Berlin, West Berlin situation. That's what it is. So it's interesting. As I said, the third means of comparing documents, you have a substantiated document, and now you compare signatures. That Rashi doesn't mention that over here. He mentions either the witnesses, they testify regarding their own signatures, or other witnesses recognize the signatures happen to be these individuals.
What was the third one again?
You have a substantiated document, which already was substantiated in court that it wasn't a forgery.
Right.
And now you just compare signatures. That's the way they do it today, right? To determine whether it's a forgery or not a forgery. So why isn't the third? Now, there's no question the third is not as accurate as the first two. The witnesses themselves say, we know these are our signatures. They said themselves. Other people who know what the signatures are, they also. When you compare signatures, the question is, it's not so simple. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's similar, but it's not. Right? So some Mefarshim say that the Gemara says kiyum, when you substantiate a document, it's only rabbinical. That you have is rabbinical. What about if it's contested by the person himself? He claims it's a forgery. Then substantiate the document is a doraisa. It's not a drabanan. Over here it's speaking about the husband himself is contesting the validity of the document. He claims it's a forgery. So because over here, it seems from Rashi, it requires substantiation sort of on a Torah level, therefore we don't rely on comparing documents, because there's a certain element of error there. If it's only rabbinical, we rely on that's sufficient. But here, where the husband's contesting the validity, he claims it's a forgery, you only rely on the witnesses themselves testifying, or other witnesses who actually recognize the signatures themselves.
So you had a regular star, you need two witnesses.
That's two separate things.
But here you need one.
You're jumping from A to Z to Chof and whatever the alphabet, or in the Greek alphabet. Has no relevance. No. We have another, David. We have another minute or two. They do it themselves. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have a phone? What time is it?